My first memory of DAS is probably sitting in Laurie's classroom. Every day we had a sort of talking circle, and we'd sit on the carpet in a circle, and we'd have, we'd pass around snacks, because we had snack time at that time too, and we'd just talk about things, and we'd have discussions. And they probably weren't very, deep or meaningful discussions, considering we were all in senior kindergarten or grade 1. But we all just really enjoyed them, and we'd talk about our families or our friends or just anything that we had to talk about at that age, and it would just be a lot of fun. And you could say anything in that circle and nobody would be able to do anything about it. I had Lori as a teacher for grades senior kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, and grade 4. And I loved her. She was a great teacher. She was probably my favorite teacher at that time. And I wish she still taught there. I wished I could have had her for all of the years, but unfortunately she left. For a really good reason, she had a baby. You don't really get much of a better reason than that, but it was sad. We all missed her. She was just everybody's friend. It wasn't like she was a teacher, she'd teach you, and if you had a problem with something, she'd help you out with it, and she'd explain it to you so you'd understand it. But really, she was just everybody's friend. Everybody in the entire class loved her and treated her probably like a second mother. And it worked that way. Everybody trusted her and everybody listened to her, and it was probably one of the best environments. You really get to know a person. If they teach you for 4 or 5 years, you really, really get to know them, and you get to know kind of about their life. Because for most kids, you don't really know anything about your teachers outside of school. But I remember, you could have teachers come to your house for dinner if you wanted, or, you met your teachers' husbands and wives and kids, and it was just a really family-oriented community at DAS, and everybody loved it. It was really weird. Everybody got to know all of the teachers really, really well, and the teachers got to know the students and their families really well. I don't remember when I first heard about peacemaking. As far as I remember, it was always there, and we were just always doing it. And if we ever had a problem, if any kids had a problem, we'd just get a group of kids together, and we'd do a peacemaking circle. And it was just there from the time that I went there to the time that I left, and everybody did it. We had class discussions about peacemaking. I don't know if we ever had a class-wide problem that we would have to have an entire class do a peacemaking circle of, but it probably happened once or twice. I think it was when I was in Laura's class, and she just sat us down in the talking circle, and she told us all about it, and then she kind of made us try it, and she gave us a situation, and she sort of just said, try to figure out how to fix this problem in a peacemaking circle. And we'd do it, and it worked. So we liked it, and we kept doing it, and we thought it was fun. I never did a peacemaking circle outside of school, because, once you're in grade 7 or grade 8, if you have a problem with a kid in grade 8 or grade 9, you can't just say, all right, let's sit down with 4 or 5 other people and have a circle and we're going to talk this out. You just basically talk about it with them. But I can remember using peacemaking skills that I got at DAS in other places with my friends or at school or just anywhere there was a problem. You can pretty much use peacemaking skills. You can't do anything when you're really angry and really worked up because you're not thinking clearly, so you just have to kind of calm down and look at it from an outsider's point of view, and then look at both sides of it, and then kind of just try to figure out what you did wrong and where they went wrong, and then how to better yourselves because of it. There was a lot more bullying in grades 5 and 6 than there was in any of the younger grades, and I was one of the loser kids. So there was a lot more bullying directed towards me than I was used to. And peacemaking didn't work at that time because, the people who were bullying me just wouldn't listen to it. They didn't care. They were the rebels, They didn't care what people had to say about them. They were just mean. So it didn't really work that well. I just tried to stay out of their way and avoid them. But it worked some of the time. They weren't the brightest kids, so they didn't know how to make someone feel really, really bad about themselves, emotionally. It was just, they would, they'd call you names and they'd say you were stupid and they'd make fun of you all the time, but it wasn't anything past that. I think I only ever saw one physical fight at DAS, and it got broken up pretty much the second it started. There were boys, and then there were two girls who hung around with the mean boys, and those were the only girls who were bullies. But I was actually kind of okay with them, one of them, because it was one of my close friends, and I'd been close friends with her for our entire childhood. So in grades 5 and 6, she would, she'd sometimes just go up to people and she'd be like, you know what, stop doing that to her. She doesn't need it, and I know her, she's my friend, so just quit it. It's not necessary. For the most part, I tried to stay out of the bully's way, and when I did get in their way, there was one kid he was like the coolest kid in the school, and everybody loved him, and even the bullies looked up to him and loved him. So when he said, stop or don't do that, people listened, and people just stopped. And he and I were actually pretty good friends, and we used to hang out together, and he was friends with me and my friends. So whenever he saw something really bad happening to us, he'd just go up to people and he'd be like, what do you think you're doing? And they'd just be like, oh, I'm sorry, I won't do it again, please don't hate me. And it would just go like that. So it was alright. He saved our asses a couple times. There was good and there was bad. There was most certainly bad, there was bullying and all of that, and it was crappy, but I made some good friends at DAS, and we had a lot of fun, so it was good. I was so sad to leave. I think I probably cried when I graduated. It was really sad. It was still a really family-oriented kind of deal. So when we left, it was like splitting up this massive family. And it was just, everybody was sad about it. I don't think there was anybody at DAS who was happy to go. There's only one person who I am still in touch with, and I'm still in good touch with at DAS, and that's Claire. We went to Lord Lansdowne. We were in the same class at DAS for all of the years that we were there, and then we ended up going to the same middle school, and we were in the same class in our middle school. So we just we gathered a group of friends around us in the middle school, and then when we all went off to high school, I went to Rosedale, and a bunch of the kids from our circle at Lord Lansdowne went to UFA. And we'd get together through that, and we'd just still see each other. If you're brought up going to alternative school, you get really used to it. You get used to the way alternative schools are run, and it makes it harder to go into a normal school because you're not used to it. You don't know what you're supposed to do or how you're supposed to deal with things, you're thrown into an atmosphere of a normal school where you're not close to anybody there and nobody really knows anything about you, and you don't know anything about the teachers or the students there, and you just get really confused, and it's really hard to do. It's really hard to adjust from going from DAS to something that wide open, and it wasn't that great. I was there for 2 years, and I went to a public high school after that, so I guess I adjusted as much as I'd have to. I didn't like it as much. I didn't like the routine of it. I liked DAS's routine better, but there's nothing I could do, so I had to. When I was little, I always liked putting on shows for my parents and my family and my parents' friends and anybody who was around, pretty much. I just wanted to be the center of attention, have everybody looking at me and laughing at what I was doing or something like that. And I just remember I wanted to do that from when I was little, so it seemed a pretty good step to take, going to an art school for it. I really wanted to go to ESA. ESA was my first choice, and all of my friends in my Lord Lansdowne group tried out for ESA, and it turned out that I was the only one who didn't get accepted. So that was really, really bad. And of course I was, mad at them for getting accepted when I hadn't. But it was alright because my mom ended up getting me into Rosedale, which was also an art school, but a much more laid-back one. The only dramatically inclined thing at Lord Lansdowne was the talent show. But I was a freak at Lord Lansdowne too, so we weren't... It kind of ran the way the popular kids did the talent show, because they were popular and they had to show off their popular skills to everybody. and you would audition for the talent show, and a lot of the people who weren't the most popular kids in school didn't get picked, and it just worked that way. So me and my friends were never in the talent show. I've never been one of the popular kids. I think that to be a popular kid means you have to be kind of stupid, and you have to kind of let everybody think that you're not as smart or as intelligent as you are, and you have to really conform to being like one kind of person, and I've never liked that. So I just do my own thing, and I guess people don't like it, so. But at Rosedale, that all changed, because at Rosedale, everybody's a freak, so there are no popular kids, so all of the freaks are the popular kids, and it's confusing, but it works really well. Every kid is a bully in some way, with their friends or with people that they don't really know that well. And there's the really, really big time bullies that you have who just hate everybody, and they think they're the best, so they hate everybody who's below them. And then there's bullies in your friends' circles as well. And even if you're really, really, really close with a person, you can still make them feel horrible about themselves. Sometimes better than normal bullies can, because you're friends with them, so you know it will make them feel bad about themselves. And girls are the worst at it, because girls really know how to hurt a person. If a bully is a guy, they'll call you names or say that you're ugly or throw rocks at you. But if there's a girl who's a bully, she'll make your life hell. And she'll make you feel like you want to switch schools or move to a different country or just get as far away as possible. And since I hung out with mostly girls, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of cattiness, and there was a lot of, we don't want you hanging out with us, so you have to go over there and not talk to us, which is pretty ridiculous. But I don't think we looked at the bigger picture and saw that we were doing to other people what other people were doing to us. So we did it anyways, and we didn't notice that it was just as bad as what they were doing to us, and we continued to do it. And I guess when we grew up, we realized we were kind of dumb, but then we just didn't notice, so we just did what was normal to us. When you're growing up, you think you're going to have a typical high school experience, like Nancy Drew or the Sweet Valley Twins or something like that. And you think it's going to be like an Americanized sort of high school, where all of the Niners get ninered, and they get thrown into lockers or made fun of or something, and there's this really big initiation that you have to go through to be a popular kid. And at Rosedale, it wasn't like that at all. It was just, you were who you were, and everybody else was who they were, and you were popular if you didn't conform. And the kids who did, nobody liked them. Everybody was just like, why are you trying to be something that you're not? And everybody who just stayed true to themselves, kids just had respect for them. So it worked pretty well. They worked out really well socially. Academically, not so much, because I skipped school all the time. And I got in with a bad crowd at the beginning of the year, and they skipped school all the time, so I skipped school all the time. And then by the time I got in with a slightly better crowd, it was too late for me to really, get my marks up or change anything. So I failed most of my classes, and then had to repeat grade 9 when I should have been in grade 10. And then halfway through grade 10, I left for an alternative school to pick up some credits. Halfway through grade 9, I knew that I'd probably have to repeat grade 9, and then that I'd probably be in high school for 5 years instead of 4. And then once I was in grade 10, I knew I was probably going to be in high school for 6 years instead of 4. But I figured there was not much I could do about it, so I was just going to try as hard as I could once I switched to an alternative school and see if I could just graduate, hopefully. Conflicts just come out of nowhere when you hit puberty. And I think a lot of kids go through the same things, they fight with their friends, they fight with their parents, they fight with the bullies, and then hopefully they work it out with their friends and their parents. When you have a fight or a conflict and it's a really bad one, you get really worked up about it and you get really angry and you get really emotional and you can't step back and look at the bigger picture. You think that you were the right one and that you didn't do anything wrong to anybody, and you get really worked up about it. And if you calm down and you just relax and step out of the circle and look at it from an outsider's point of view, you can look at maybe what you did do wrong and then what they did wrong and where the conflict actually happened, and you can kind of work it out from there. Nobody likes to have problems in their life. If life was a wonderful, perfect highway of happiness, then everybody would be perfectly happy, but we wouldn't know how happy we were. And so we have to have conflict. It's something necessary in life, but nobody likes it. And you just have to deal with it. But whenever I have fights with my friends, I know that we'll resolve it, because they're like my family. They're the closest friends that I have, and if we don't resolve it, we'll all just fall apart, so we have to.